Before we get into our interview with Carmin from the Mike Calta Show on 102.5 The Bone, this is being brought to you by Eric Marshall, EMK Final Round, the home of the best kickboxing, Muay Thai, and MMA classes in the Bay Area at 6103 28th Street East, and that's in Bradenton. Call or text them at any time at 941-812-2560. That's 941-812-2560. And this is being brought to you by Metro PCS Speedy Link with over 22 locations in the Bay Area from Dade City all the way to Sarasota. If you go there and tell them that I sent you, they will hook you up with a great deal. All right, without further ado, here is Carmin, only on Happy Hour. What's up? This is Happy Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, and from the top-rated Mike Calta Show on 102.5 The Bone, Carmin is hanging out on the show. What's up, Carmin?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. So I was thinking about it. You know what I like about you, Carmin, is you're very genuine. A lot of people, it doesn't happen here at The Bone, but I've seen people on radio that will be nice to your face and then will just go on air and rip into you. What I like about you and the show is the fact that you're as genuine as it comes to like people's faces.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I think that's just my personality to begin with, but I think that's why our show meshes so well between Mike, Galvin, Spanish, and myself, is we are all very open and honest with each other and everyone else in our lives. Spanish, not so much, but the rest of us.
So I've sat in on the show maybe 7 to 8 times in my life, maybe more. And each time it's very chill during the commercial break. Like everyone seems to get along. Everything seems to be cool. Has there ever been a moment though, like right when you go to break, maybe Mike gets mad or Galvin gets mad? Have you guys ever had like a inner house argument? Maybe when you were doing afternoons or mornings now?
Not so much off air. Basically, if we're having an argument, it is happening on air. And if there is something that is said off air that causes some disagreement, Mike will instantly tell us, stop talking, save it for on air. We don't do anything off air or behind the scenes unless it's planning an interview or something like that that isn't genuine or isn't just a natural reaction and emotion.
Would you say that over the last 6 years that you've been on Mike's show that he's kind of taken you under his wing as like a mentor? Because it seems like, I know he cares about you, but it really seems like he's molded you into the person that you are today.
I mean, I wouldn't go as far as saying molded me as the person I am today. Maybe like my on air and how I'm able to interact and like, with the show and stuff like that. Definitely, because this is my first radio job ever, and I started off in afternoons with Mike, and then I went from the transition from afternoons to mornings. So this is really the Mike Calta Show, and the Cowhead Show is really the only radio that I know. So like when I work with other hosts, sometimes we'll have like Drew Garabo or SBK sit in with us, and it's fun to do different radio and different styles and mesh with different people. But I feel like because I have been with Mike for so long, it's so easy and it just comes so natural from a day to day.
So when you guys went from afternoons and then went to mornings, have you gotten used to getting up in the morning? Because it's going on 4 years now. Has it gotten any better since 2014?
Has it really been that long? 4 years?
I think it's 2014, right?
Oh, I have no idea.
So has it gotten any better? Because it just seems like it's the same thing. Do you guys get used to it, or do you just get up and just face it?
You just got to get up and do it. It definitely does not get any easier. And I will say that was like the number one thing that all the morning people here in the building when we were going through the transition, like Slater, Nick Van Cleve, and Ian Kelly, that was the number one thing. All of them said, like, just you never get used to it. Just get over it. Set your alarms. Set a backup. Make sure you have some coffee ready for you when you wake up, and just bite the bullet and hit the day.
So, what time do you usually first wake up in the morning, and how does that process go? So, like, do you begin looking at prep, or do you first get dressed and then look at prep, or do you look at prep the night before?
So Spanish and Gio does the prep for our show, and Spanish, and they'll send us the email. So basically I'll read through all the headlines to see what's going on, just to kind of get a sense of what I'm going to wake up to and need to do when I get in here. But other than that, yeah, my first alarm goes off at 4:30, and then after that, I have 10-minute intervals until like all the way up until the show. So once I'm finally out of bed, I'll shut the rest of them off, and then get up, get here, and then I grab audio. So really, I don't have to do any of like the prep of finding the news stories. I get all the news stories sent to me, and then if I have a little extra time, I might hit up like a few other websites, TMZ for the gossip and stuff like that.
Is there ever any like really slow news days, like the definition of a slow news day, where it's like there's really not much to talk about and you have to find even harder for news?
Oh, yeah. I mean, basically, like when there's no celebrity meltdowns, or President Trump didn't have a conference. Like if the stars align and nothing happens throughout the day or overnight, like you wake up and you'll be sitting on some of the same news stories that you've already done the day before, and you can go back. And the big thing is you don't want to go back and recap them because you just talked about it. So you might have to look a little deeper into local news or like personal news stories where it's not as national attention and stuff like that, which it does make it harder. But the good thing about Mike is he's so good at staying on top of stuff like that, or like having friends in the business where he knows something that no one else knows, where you can kind of get an inside scoop from Mike's perspective if he's allowed to talk about it. So for me, I don't ever have to worry about it. That's more of Mike's job. My job is just to like make sure I'm on top of whatever Mike knows.
You know what's crazy about Mike is the fact that when you're talking to him on air, if he's interviewing you, you almost forget that you're on air because he's so laid back and he does such a good job of interviewing people that he gets the best out of you. And then you're like, wait, I'm on air. Because like there'll be times, I'm sure it happens to you, where listeners are like, oh, that was so crazy when you said that on air. And you're like, oh, I did say that on air.
I mean, there's a lot of times that, people will come up and remember a moment from like when I first started 7 or 6 years ago. And I'm like, that happened. But like with Mike, his interviewing skills, he's just so natural, and he's such a, he has a way of putting people at ease and making you feel comfortable, where a lot of our guests, whether they're a celebrity, comedian, movie star, whatever, that they just sit in that chair and they'll come in tired because they don't have the early mornings like we do, and they're just not into it. They don't want to be here. But after 5 minutes of talking to Mike, they're taking their sunglasses off, perky, like, get me a cup of coffee, and they'll sit down and they'll have an interview for an hour. Where before they walk in, you think like, okay, if we get 10 minutes out of this person, we're lucky. But Mike is able to draw them in and really make them like part of the family.
Who have been some guests that just don't seem like real life that have come in that you were just so happy to meet?
I don't know. That's a really tough question because a lot of the guests that come in studio are really, really cool. You know what I mean? Like either they've been here before, or they're like Mike knows them through someone. So there's already like a pre-relationship. So it's, I don't know. I think it's mainly the guys that are supposed to come in studio and then cancel last minute. Those are always the one that would be the coolest.
Yeah.
But because they're on such a high in their own career, they don't need to come in. So they don't. You know?
Yeah,
you understand
that makes sense.
Okay.
Because the ones that don't come in, you're like, oh, that would have made for great radio. It's sort of like you miss out on it.
Right. So like the latest one that I can think of is like Pete Davidson.
Yeah.
And like it was before he was with Ariana Grande, but it was still, he was like right in the height of his SNL career and stuff. Well, throughout the year, you know what I mean? Like he was really the big name in comedy for young comics at that time. And he was supposed to come in, and then he canceled and wanted to do a phoner. And then he canceled the phoner because he wanted to go to Universal. And so you look back on that and you're like, well, if he would have came in, because now he's with Ariana Grande and he's in the news so much, it's almost like, damn, that would have been pretty sweet to have him in. But because he didn't, you're like, you missed out. But not really.
What do your friends up north think about everything that you've done on air? Like, do they think it's cool, or do they kind of keep you humble and they know you as Carmin from Michigan?
Well, to be honest, I'm friends with a lot of them on Facebook and stuff, but when I go home, because I only go home for maybe like 1 week out of the year,
yeah,
if that, maybe every other year I make it home like for 1 week. So I spend a lot of time with my family. I might see a few friends here and there, but it's just, I mean, I'm going on almost 9 or 10 years from graduation. So we just kind of lost touch. We keep in touch through Facebook and stuff, but I don't know. I feel like everyone here, all my friends here, and even the people on the station and the guys that I work with, like, have kept me pretty humble. Because, like, Mike, you know, he jokes about having a big head and being, like, the third most famous person in Pasco County. But at the end of the day, like, he is a genuinely, like, just very, like, humble and just very thankful to have this job, which keeps me in the same line.
What are some of the best things that you've maybe learned while watching Mike work, or he said to you? What are some of the lessons and things that Mike has taught you over the years?
I mean, I think some of the best advice is, like, because I came in under Spanish's wing, and so Spanish has always been just kind of nervous and very frantic. And always like, I'm going to get fired because I didn't have the lights turned on correctly or something like that. And that type of energy, it's really easy to rub off, where it's like, you're not going to get fired for something as silly as forgetting a piece of paper or the lights or the mics. You know what I mean? Like, that's an easy fix. It can be done on the run. And it's good to yell at you for air and stuff like that. But Spanish, he would, like, in the beginning, he'd literally freak out and think he was going to get fired over stuff like that. So that rubbed off on me, and I would do the littlest thing wrong. Like, one time, Mike's biggest meltdown on me was I forgot to update the prize sheet correctly, and he blew up on me, was like, you have one job. How can't you do this correctly? We can get a monkey in here to do that. Do I even need you? And we were in a different room, and he shut the blinds on me because he didn't want to see me. He was so furious. And I was like, and that's when I was like, oh my God, am I really going to get fired for not updating the prizes? And I had that mental. And then, like, one day, you know, we fixed everything. Problem was resolved. And he just sat me down and he was like, listen, I'm never going to fire you for not wanting to do something or not participate. He's like, I might be a little disappointed. I might be mad for 5 minutes. He was like, but at the end of the day, you have to have your own morals and your own lines. So that way you're true to yourself. He was like, so just know I'm never going to fire you for not saying no. And that was definitely probably one of the best advice from all the nervousness that Spanish projected onto me.
I think that's what makes him such a great guy, though, is because he's so nervous all the time that's why he's such a hard worker, is he wants to make Mike happy. And that's what makes him such a funny guy on air.
Of course. Yeah. You know, Spanish will do anything for Mike. And I feel like he's starting to finally calm down a little bit now that he reached his 30s. So that's good. Yeah. Because otherwise he'd probably have a premature heart attack.
What do you think you'll be like when you turn 30? Do you think you'll be a different person, or will it just be an age?
I think it'll just be an age. I think definitely throughout the years I've matured, you know, here and there in, like, different aspects of my life. But I hope, you know, I have my fingers crossed, and I hope that I'm, like, still a fun-loving, just up for whatever type of person throughout my whole life. So.
Is it crazy to think, Carmin, that you're on the biggest morning show in Tampa and one of the biggest shows in radio? Do you ever kind of, like, sit back maybe on your, like, rocking chair in your living room and just think about
rocking chair?
My mom does. That was a weird thing to say.
It's a great reference.
But do you ever think about the fact that you're on, like, a huge radio show? Like, does it ever seem not real?
Yeah, like, all the time, you know, like, it's, to be honest, like, you'll just be out in public and someone will come up to you, or Publix, and someone will come up to you and be like, Carmin, Mike Calta, love the show. And everyone's super nice. And you're just like, how would you ever know what I look like or who I am just walking around a grocery store? I'm not talking. I'm not I'm not on. I don't have my personality, like, going or anything like that. So I feel like that right there just shows, like, how big the show is. But I will say, like, my first lesson on how big the show was, because when I moved down from Michigan, I didn't know who Cowhead was. I didn't know what the station was. I had no idea. I got the internship interview through one of his friends. And I drove up from Sarasota, did the interview. John Brennan said I could do the job as long as I was cool with not getting paid and just being an intern. And so one of my first appearances ever on the mic, I talked about my football coach, which there was a big age gap and we had been hooking up. And then the emails and the Facebook messages started rolling in, and I get a text from him like, why the hell did you go on air and tell everyone about our relationship? And I was like, Sarasota is like an hour and 20 minutes from here.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that word would travel that far, or like the station, you could hear the station down that far. So I feel like probably one of the first times I was ever on the mic is when I was introduced to how big the show was. And so ever since then, I've always tried to keep that in the back of my mind when I'm talking about other people, not necessarily myself, because, you know, I've always lived by like, if I wouldn't tell my grandma, I shouldn't be doing it. But you also have to understand not everyone that is in your life is also as open as I am.
Isn't it weird to think that like they'll hear what you're saying and then our listeners like Matt will make a meme immediately within 2 minutes. They'll have the funniest meme, and it's like, they're so passionate about the Bone and Mike's show and Drew's show that they'll just come up with the funniest tweets in like a split second.
Yeah. I mean, well, there's a lot of people. I mean, basically, if you listen to this show, you have a very similar personality or sense of humor as us, or, you know, as the show and stuff like that. So when it clicks and you get it and you're creative yourself and you have the ability to make memes or graphics and stuff like that and let yourself shine, it almost like makes you a part of the show. And for a lot of people that listen to us Monday through Friday, like we are their family, you know, and just like we're their family, there's a Bone family Facebook page that we're all a part of, you know what I mean? Because that's how close we are to our listeners.
So would you ever want to work in like TV or have your own show, because you have the looks for it and you have everything going for it? Would you ever want to work for like TMZ or like TV news? Could you ever see yourself doing anything on TV, or are you happy with radio?
Yeah, I'd love to do TV because I've done stuff for the local stations here, MOR and stuff like that. And that was a lot of fun, but I definitely... I never wanted to do radio. I kind of fell into this and it was just natural, and I'm very blessed to be where I am. But like, I love radio now that I do it. And I've done the TV thing and I love doing TV. So I'm hoping at one point in my career, I'd be able to do both, which it doesn't seem so far out of reach because like you look at basically Ryan Seacrest and anyone else who does radio and television, like you almost have to be able to do both nowadays.
How crazy is it where they added Bone TV? Now, you guys have had the TV set up for 10 years now, but what's been the biggest change since you guys have had Bone TV right on the front of the Bones website?
I mean, nothing for us really, because it's, you know, it's the same as when it was Cowhead TV is now it is Bone TV. So I think really it's mainly for the listeners is what the difference is because now you get to see all of the shows. You know what I mean? You get to see Drew, you get to see Roger and JP who are up in New York. Yeah. So for us personally, like in studio, it makes no difference. But for the listeners, I feel like it's made the listeners feel a lot more part of the show.
So you said that radio wasn't a job that you thought about growing up. What was the dream job for you as a kid and as a teenager that you thought you wanted to go into? I always did want to do there you go, radio professional right here. No, I did always want to do sports broadcasting, like sidelines and stuff, because I did play sports all growing up. I played a year of college basketball, so I always thought that was kind of going to be my go-to was basketball, sports reporting, and then. Yeah, I don't know. College wasn't really for me. So then I was like, well, you can't do that without college. So I guess I'll just see where it goes. And here I am. How pumped are you about this year's cruise?
Dude. So, I mean, this is my first cruise being single in 2 years.
Oh, man.
So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of...
I can only imagine, Carmen. You don't have to say any more.
Okay. Yeah.
You painted the picture.
Good.
Isn't it weird when you go from like dating a person to being single and you have all the free time in the world? It's the most bizarre thing.
Yeah, I mean, it is, but at the same time, when you have the free time, I feel like that's when the depression and the sadness normally kicks in. Luckily for me, kind of like right when I was becoming single, school was starting back up. So I've been really focused on school and like just making sure I'm on top of all of my work here and all of my work at the for school, and then, you know, trying to do food prep and going to the gym. I actually find myself doing a lot more stuff and doing, you know, for myself than I was before, which is, you know.
Working out is the best way to not think about being single because it like makes you pumped up. You get endorphins. That's the best way for anybody that's going through a breakup. If you get into shape, you feel amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely a confidence booster, and it, you know, it's the whole endorphins getting released to help with depression and make you feel happy and stuff like that. So yeah, I would agree on that. Or, I mean, if working out isn't your thing, I would say definitely just find something that does make you happy and get into the routine of doing it on a daily basis to, you know, help you get past that.
So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Well, hopefully I will be done with my bachelor's and maybe starting on my master's or doctorate, depending if I decide to do that. And then as far as career-wise go, I don't know. That's one of those things that I've thought of, but I really haven't because I am so happy being with the Mike Calta show that it's almost hard to see myself going or doing anything else.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do not want to be a phone screener for all of my radio career.
I know what you mean.
So that is one of the things where I really don't know where I want to be. I definitely want to be on a successful show.
Yeah.
So whether it's mine, Mike's, or someone else's, you know, that's really all I can say for that.
So where can people find your work online, and how can they tune into the Mike Calta show?
Okay, so the Mike Calta show is on 102.5 The Bone, Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 a.m. And then actually after that, from 10 to 11 a.m., Spanish and myself host the after show where we replay the news, but sometimes we get into our own stuff, which I wish we could do more of. So hopefully, you know, that will be a start for the future. And then also you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Sandy Carmin. It's Carmin. And yeah.
I think you should do your own show, even if it's a 10-minute thing. I think just so that you can have your own brand and just talk about whatever you want to talk about. You're very outgoing. You're very smart. People don't give you enough credit, and I think it would translate into a good podcast.
Well, I really appreciate that. Yeah. And maybe one day I will, but as of now, I feel like there's a lot of podcasts out there, so I don't want...
There are a ton of podcasts.
Yeah, so I don't want mine to, you know, get in the way of everybody else's.
Yeah. Well, Carmin, keep up the good work.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun having you on the show, and I see big things happening for you the rest of this year and then going into 2019 for you and the show overall.
Well, thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you for having me. It was
Anytime.
A pleasure.
Thank you, Carmin.
Happy Hour. Happy Hour. Happy Hour is now over, but you can always listen 24/7 by getting the app or going to RyanHoppyRadio.com.